The year of our Lord 2025, year of AI-driven development, and looking ahead to 2026.
The Azure and DevOps podcast is a show for developers and DevOps professionals shipping software using the latest in .NET, Azure, AI, and DevOps. Listen on to learn how to increase quality, ship quickly, and operate well. The show is sponsored by ClearMeasure, a full-service software architecture and engineering firm. Find them at www.clearmeasure.com. And now your host, Jeffrey Palermo.
Welcome to the show. I'm Jeffrey Palermo, your host for helping you and your teams move fast and deliver quality and to run your software with confidence in Azure, all while using everything that the .NET ecosystem has to offer. Today, I'm going to reflect back on 2025 and highlight some things and project forward into 2026. And I think there's some very important developments and changes that we all who are shipping custom software need to be on top of. And going into 2026, the Azure and DevOps podcast is now on YouTube. Since 2018, the podcast has been audio only, but we recently launched the Azure and DevOps podcast YouTube channel, expanding to video while continuing on all of the audio platforms. I really enjoy serving you and keeping you informed and helping you ponder useful and interesting questions. And today we're closing out 2025 and stepping into 2026. So I want to review some major shifts of this past year and look forward to what's coming next. This year was very transformative for software development. So let's do a 2025 year in review. This year, AI coding agents, they really took center stage. In 2024, and late in the year, Cursor gained some early adoption with coding agents that could directly write code in your code base. But in May of 2025 at Microsoft Build, we saw a huge leap forward in Visual Studio with the Visual Studio Copilot agent mode. And instead of just chatting inside of Visual Studio or your IDE, Copilot can now directly modify as many files as needed to accomplish a task. And that has been the same with Cursor and with Claude and with Copilot and now with JetBrains Junie and probably many others to come. And of course, there's other smaller projects out there, like the open source open code. So that's been huge this year. Now, Microsoft has expanded its AI strategy in 2025, building on its OpenAI investments. It has also integrated Anthropic's Claude models, and that started sometime around September, alongside integrating all of the other models in Copilot. And in November, we had some major releases. .NET 10 came out, Visual Studio 2026 came out, which was a release all around AI-driven development. We had new versions of .NET Aspire and more cloud-native tooling aimed at Azure. Also, throughout the year, and of course some announcements at Microsoft Ignite, the company has highlighted enterprise AI agents. And this is around Microsoft 365 Copilot, the flavor of Copilot integrated into Microsoft 365. And it has gained the ability to define custom agents using documents or text from your own Microsoft 365 account. And then you can share those agent definitions with coworkers, and those agents could even create Office documents. And the feature set's new. It's not fully, but it's coming and they're working hard on it. And the direction is clear that for every type of task, for every process, for every workflow in Microsoft 365, your organization can have a defined AI agent that not only can search and pull up information from the company's account or the department's share of documents, but it can also call into systems that are exposed to it through MCP server endpoints. Now, there's been some hardware trends. NVIDIA, it really remains king of the hill for GPUs powering those large language models, but everybody, all the competition is figuring out how to catch up with NVIDIA. AI data centers are pretty much NVIDIA chip running factories, but on the LLM side, Cursor has raised several $billions and is working on its own in-house large language models for programming tasks instead of just relying on Anthropic, OpenAI, and others. And of course, the X company has the Grok AI models, and they're coming. We don't talk much about them because they're not quite as good, but they are improving seemingly every month. From a hardware perspective, there's a lot of developers in 2025 that are moving back to desktop computers rather than laptops. I think it's been over a decade. You might argue for some people 2 decades of developers using laptops for coding where, we were IO and CPU bound, but many developers are moving back to desktop computers for better thermal performance. Laptop computers throttle the performance, throttle down the chip under heat, which slows down the computer when you've got those heavy workloads running. And when the computer is using all of its horsepower, it gets hot, can't quite keep itself cool, and then the motherboard throttles down the chips, and then you have a slow computer. And the desktop computers, they can work at full power because they do have the space and the ability to keep the chips cool. So that's an interesting perspective. And actually, I switched back to a desktop computer in 2018, and I've really love that. Of course, with more and more people working remote, there's less of that. Everybody has to be mobile and take your computer home and bring it back to the office and take it home and bring it back to the office. So I think, all right, let's pull back and look at the big picture in 2025. And there's a lot of signals showing massive shifts. Right? And I'm talking about how software is built. We're all doing custom software. We're all shipping software features. So it's really important that we build software well. So software development is moving away from an era where we handcraft every code file to something akin to computer-aided drafting, CAD, and having an automated assembly line. For decades, most of the cost and time in software was in construction, not designing the software. And that is changing. Soon, designing the software is going to dominate the cost and the time in the project. And construction is going to shrink dramatically thanks to AI-driven development. And so that changes the emphasis. We have a new emphasis where it's so important to have good software architecture, good business analysis, good design pattern decisions, and complete progressive test automation suites. If we thought the amount of software in this world was exploding in recent decades, we haven't seen anything yet. The amount of software yet to be created is almost unthinkable because once we think about what software we want, design it, make those design decisions, analyze all the ins and outs of how we want it to behave, constructing it is going to be a much, much smaller effort. And so that clears the way for an explosion in custom software. So if you're thinking, okay, what should I do now? Well, if you're a software engineer or architect, here's really kind of what matters and what I'm thinking about. We need to adopt AI coding agents. GitHub Copilot, Cursor, and I'm sure more to come and more flavors of each. We need to integrate autonomous coding agents into our DevOps environments. We have to ensure that we have sufficient automated test coverage. When I say sufficient automated test coverage, I mean complete automated test coverage. If there's a particular function or path through your software that does not have automated test coverage, well, guess what? It's just a matter of time before that pathway breaks. And you need to know so that you don't ship that to your customers. All these AI advancements cannot help if tests are missing. And if you have gaps in your testing, yeah, you could even use a monitored path with Copilot in Visual Studio to help you fill in some of those gaps in test coverage. But you are designing the test coverage. You are deciding what pathway to test. You are deciding how to set up the environment so that that test happens. That's design. We also need to standardize architecture and design patterns. The coding agents learn from our existing code. And so if we don't like the code that we have now, then we have to fix it because AI agents are only going to give us more of what we already have. DevOps environment is your software factory. Think of your pipelines, your DevOps pipelines, as automated assembly lines. The factory workers, well, they're digital robots. They're the computer. Those are the AI agents producing code, producing software features. And you, as the software engineer, you're designing workstations and parts of that software factory, which is your DevOps environment. So DevOps environments are even more important now. All right, so let's look ahead to 2020. So we can expect even more involvement by different people into the software process. Stakeholders and product managers are going to directly influence code via AI prompts. IoT and robotics are going to explode with software everywhere, even tiny ESP32 chips in garden beds measuring soil moisture and temperature. Those all are going to have code running in them. And skills in architecture and business analysis and test automation, those skills are even more important than ever. Another aspect of the Agile Manifesto is going to be realized in 2026 in a new way. Daily collaboration between developers and customers. Well, soon, customers and product managers will have access to DevOps environments, and they can define specs as AI prompts, and they can submit pull requests themselves because they're thinking about how they want the software to behave. And when it's a prompt, guess what? Now your business analyst can define all that information, run it through your DevOps environment, and have a feature branch with a pull request out the other end for integration. So the amount of software yet to be created is just staggering to think about. And we are just getting started. But to close with a personal note, I really enjoy serving you and keeping you informed and helping you ponder useful and interesting questions and bringing on interesting guests. So thank you for joining me on this journey. And as we step into 2026 and beyond, may God bless you and your family and give you wisdom for the days to come. Happy New Year. And until next time, keep shipping.
You've been listening to the Azure and DevOps podcast. You can find us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and anywhere you get your podcasts. Visit our sponsor, ClearMeasure, at www.clearmeasure.com. And on behalf of your host, Jeffrey Palermo, thanks for listening, and may God bless you.